What if I told you that 3 nights ago, at exactly 3:17 a.m., your name was spoken in a room you've never seen? What if the very fact that you're watching this right now, at this exact moment, wasn't your choice but heaven's? What if everything you thought was coincidence was actually covenant? You weren't supposed to hear this. This message was sealed, classified, meant only for those whose spiritual DNA carries a specific frequency. But somehow, you did. You found your way here. Or did it find you? Listen carefully. There's something moving in the invisible realm tonight. Something that concerns you directly. While you've been sleeping, while you've been going through the motions of ordinary life, heaven has been orchestrating something extraordinary. A secret assignment tone that's been dormant in your spirit for years just came alive. You felt it, didn't you? That sudden pull, that restless ache in your chest, that voice whispering, "Pay attention." That's not anxiety, that's activation. Your spirit recognizes what your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Tonight, the veil is thin. The realm of the spirit is bleeding through into your reality. And you, chosen one, are standing at the intersection of the seen and unseen. Before we go any deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow into this sacred work. But know this, if something stirs in your spirit right now, if a whisper inside you is saying this is for me, type 777 in the comments. This moment is not casual, it's covenant. It's confirmation that you are exactly where heaven intended you to be. There are things hidden from the public, but not from you. Secrets sealed in scrolls that bear your name. Assignments written before time began, waiting for this very hour to be revealed. Tonight changes everything. The question is, are you ready to discover what you were truly born for? Because what I'm about to share with you will shatter every small thought you've ever had about your life. You are not here by accident. You are not random. You are chosen. And your secret assignment just went live. Stay with me. Your destiny is listening. Why have the years felt like weights instead of wings? Why has every birthday brought more questions than answers? Why does it feel like you've been living in the attic of time, collecting dust, unseen, forgotten by a world that celebrates youth while your wisdom goes unnoticed? You've carried burdens that would have broken younger backs. You've weathered storms that would have sunk ships with newer sails. And somewhere in the middle of all that surviving, you started wondering, God, did you forget about me? Let me speak directly to your heart tonight. Those silent years, the ones where you felt invisible, where your voice seemed to carry no weight, where opportunities passed you by like trains you were never meant to catch, those weren't empty years. They weren't wasted decades. They were something far more sacred than you realized. You've sat in doctors' offices with test results that made your hands shake. You've buried friends who were supposed to grow old alongside you. You've watched your children build lives that sometimes feel 1,000 miles away, even when they're sitting right next to you. You felt the sting of being overlooked, passed over, talked around instead of talked to. And in those quiet moments, 3 a.m. moments when sleep won't come and memories won't stop, you've whispered questions into the darkness. What was it all for? Was any of it meaningful? Does my life still matter? Here's what breaks my heart. You've been measuring your worth by the world's broken calculator. A calculator that says your value decreases with every candle on your birthday cake. A system that treats you like you're expired when you're actually at your most refined. But tonight, I'm here to tell you something that's going to shatter that lie forever. The Bible tells us in Job 12:12, Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? You weren't benched, beloved. You were being prepared. Every rejection, every closed door, every time someone made you feel too old, heaven was using it all as sandpaper on a precious stone. You thought you were being punished, but heaven was preserving you. Think about wine. The most valuable bottles aren't the newest ones sitting on the shelf. They're the ones that have been stored in darkness, aged in silence, refined by time itself. That's what these years have done to you. You've been aging in divine cellars, developing a depth of character that cannot be manufactured, only earned. But here's where it gets supernatural. Right now, in this very season of your life, God is not putting you out to pasture. He's positioning you for your greatest assignment yet. While the world sees retirement, heaven sees deployment. While others see your limitations, God sees your liberation from the distractions that used to pull you away from your true calling. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. 80. Can you imagine if Moses had said, "God, I'm too old for this. My best years are behind me"? 2 million people would have remained in bondage because one man believed the lie that his season was over. Anna, the prophetess, was 84 when she became the first person to proclaim Jesus as the Messiah to the people of Jerusalem. 84. At an age when most people are content to sit quietly, she was making the most significant prophetic declaration in human history. Right now, as you're listening to these words, something is stirring in your spirit. You feel it, don't you? That familiar ache, that restless knowing that there's more. That's not nostalgia, dear one. That's prophecy trying to birth itself through you. The silent years taught you discernment that young hearts haven't developed. They gave you a prayer life that emergency situations can't shake. They showed you what really matters when everything else gets stripped away. You've been through enough seasons to know which storms will pass and which battles are worth fighting. Your scars are not disqualifications, they're credentials. Your gray hair is not a sign of decline, it's a crown of wisdom. Your slower pace is not weakness, it's the measured step of someone who finally knows where they're going. But here's the urgency, chosen one. God is not waiting for you to feel ready. He's waiting for you to remember who you are. The assignment He's releasing over your life tonight doesn't require young legs or perfect hearing. It requires a heart that's been refined by fire and a spirit that's learned to trust when nothing else makes sense. Write in the comments, "I am not forgotten." Let the heavens and hell hear you say it out loud, because you're not. You never were. You've been hidden in God's hand like an arrow in a quiver, waiting for the precise moment when your aim would be truest. The question that's been haunting you, is it too late? I'm here to answer with Holy Ghost authority. It's not too late. It's exactly the right time. The world needs what you carry. The younger generation needs your wisdom. Your family needs your prayers. Your community needs your steady presence. And heaven needs you to stop believing the lie that your best days are behind you, because the most powerful chapters of your story are about to be written with silver ink and golden wisdom. But there's something else stirring tonight, something that's going to change how you see everything that's coming. Chosen one, something just broke open in the spirit realm. I need you to understand what happened 3 hours ago. At exactly 9:47 p.m. Eastern Time, while you were going about your evening routine, maybe washing dishes, scrolling your phone, or settling into bed, heaven cracked open a vault that's been sealed for decades. Your assignment, the one written before your first heartbeat, the one your grandmother prayed about without even knowing your name. It just came alive. You've felt different lately, haven't you? Like something stirring beneath the surface of your ordinary life. Like there's a frequency humming in your spirit that you can't quite tune into. That restlessness you've been trying to explain away, that's not anxiety, that's awakening. God says in Jeremiah 1-5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Set you apart for what? For this moment, for this assignment, for this sacred disruption of everything you thought you knew about your purpose. But here's what's going to shock you. You've been carrying this assignment your entire life without knowing it. Every closed door that confused you, every detour that frustrated you, every season of silence that nearly broke you, none of it was random. It was preparation. Think about this. Why do you think your path has been so different from everyone else's? Why couldn't you settle for the mediocre life that satisfied others? Why did shallow conversations drain you while deep truths energized you? Because you were never designed for ordinary. You were designed for assignment. And tonight, that assignment just received its activation code. Let me tell you what's happening in the invisible realm right now. Angels assigned to your bloodline are standing at attention. Spiritual forces that have been waiting for your green light are mobilizing. The very atmosphere around your life is shifting because heaven just handed you something that's been in storage for your entire lifetime. You know what the enemy feared most about you? Not your talent, not your education, not your connections. He feared the moment you'd discover that God didn't need your resume. He needed your yes. Because when a chosen one says yes to their assignment, generational chains don't just crack, they shatter. When someone like you steps into divine alignment, the impossible becomes inevitable. When you stop asking for permission and start walking in position, hell's strategy collapses. But here's the hard truth that's going to pierce your heart. Some of you have been running from this assignment for years. You felt it calling. You sensed the weight. You knew there was more. But you convinced yourself you weren't qualified. You weren't ready. You weren't worthy. Stop. Right there. Stop. Isaiah 49:2 declares, "He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver." You haven't been forgotten. You've been forged. Every season of hiddenness was heaven's way of sharpening you for this moment. The assignment that just came alive in your spirit isn't small. It's not safe. It's not comfortable. It will require you to move beyond every boundary you've ever set for yourself. It will demand that you speak when you'd rather stay silent. Step forward when you'd rather step back. Trust when logic screams to quit. But here's what heaven sees that you don't. You're ready. Not because you feel ready, but because God says you are. Not because you have all the answers, but because you have access to the one who does. Your assignment carries DNA that's specifically designed for this generation. This broken, confused, searching generation that's crying out for authentic voices, real faith, genuine power. They don't need another performance. They need a demonstration, and that demonstration is supposed to come through you. Some of you are thinking, but what if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if I mess this up? Let me shock you with this truth. Your assignment isn't dependent on your perfection. It's dependent on your surrender. God doesn't call the equipped, He equips the called. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, something is shifting in your chest. You can feel it, can't you? That ancient stirring, that holy discontent, that divine dissatisfaction with status quo. That's not restlessness, that's recognition. Your spirit is remembering what your mind forgot. The sealed envelope of your destiny just trembled open by divine hand. The contents are spilling out into your consciousness, and there's no going back to pretending you don't know. There's no return to the comfortable lie that you're just another face in the crowd. You are not ordinary. You never were. You were marked before birth, assigned before breath, commissioned before consciousness. And tonight, that commission just went from dormant to dynamic. The question thundering through heaven right now is this: will you receive it? Will you embrace the wait? Will you step into the assignment that's been waiting for you to be ready? Say it out loud with me right now. I receive my assignment. Tonight, it lives in me. Feel that electricity in your spirit? That's confirmation. That's heaven's yes meeting your yes. That's the moment everything changes. But receiving your assignment is just the beginning. Now comes the real question. What are you going to do with it? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you will explain everything, every sleepless night, every unexplained attack, every moment. You wondered why your life felt like a battlefield when all you wanted was peace. You were under surveillance, not by the government, not by your neighbors. You were being watched by both heaven and hell. And here's what will shock you to your core. Hell saw you first. Before you ever whispered your first prayer, before you ever opened a Bible, before you even knew there was a God who loved you, your name was already echoing through hell's corridors. The enemy identified you as a threat while you were still learning to walk. Does that sound impossible? Listen to what happened to Job. The Bible tells us in Job 1-8 that God asked Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job?" But here's what most people miss. Satan already knew who Job was. He'd been watching. He'd been planning. He'd been waiting for permission to strike. You think your childhood trauma was random? You think those early heartbreaks just happened? You think the depression that hit you at 16, the anxiety that gripped you in your 20s, the failures that seemed to follow you like shadows, you think that was all coincidence? Wake up. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on ordinary people. Demons don't assign task forces to average souls. The level of warfare you've endured is directly proportional to the level of threat you represent to the kingdom of darkness. Think about it. Why did rejection find you so early? Why did you feel different from everyone else, even as a child? Why did you carry burdens that seemed too heavy for your small shoulders? Because something in the spirit realm recognized what your natural mind couldn't yet comprehend. You were marked for greatness. The enemy saw your blueprint before you did. He read your heavenly file. He knew that one day you would become dangerous to his agenda. So he launched preemptive strikes. He tried to break you before you could break his strongholds. Every betrayal was strategic. Every disappointment was calculated. Every moment you felt abandoned, that was hell trying to convince you that you were forgotten, unwanted, purposeless. But here's the truth that will set you free. You can't be attacked for potential you don't possess. The very fact that you survived what should have destroyed you is proof that heaven had a plan for your life that hell couldn't touch. Romans 8:18 declares, "I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us." That glory, that's what the enemy was trying to prevent. You want to know why your relationships were sabotaged? Because hell knew you would one day carry healing to the brokenhearted. You want to know why your finances were attacked? Because hell knew you would one day be a channel of God's provision. You want to know why your mind was tormented? Because hell knew the revelations that would one day flow through your thoughts. The enemy doesn't fight empty vessels. He fights anointed ones. He doesn't waste time on people who pose no threat. He targets those who carry divine assignment. But here's where the story gets beautiful. Every attack was documented in heaven. Every tear was collected. Every scream in the night was heard by the Father. And while hell was trying to destroy you, heaven was using that very pressure to forge you into a weapon. The attacks weren't punishment, they were preparation. The warfare wasn't evidence of God's absence, it was proof of his presence. Because when heaven marks someone for assignment, hell always responds with opposition. You survived because you were supposed to survive. You endured because endurance was being built into your spiritual DNA. You kept breathing because your breath carries purpose that extends far beyond your own life. Every scar on your soul is now a medal of honor. Every wound is now a well of compassion. Every broken place is now a point of connection with others who are still bleeding. The very things that hell meant to use to disqualify you, God is now using to qualify you. Your mess has become your message. Your pain has become your platform. Your wounds have become your weapons. But understand this, the warfare isn't over, it's escalating. Because now you know who you are. Now you're awakening to your assignment. And hell is terrified of what happens when a chosen one fully realizes their identity and steps into their power. The enemy thought he could stop you in the seed stage. He failed. He thought he could break you in the growth stage. He failed. Now he's watching you blossom into the very thing he tried to prevent, a carrier of heaven's fire on earth. Your name echoed in hell's corridors before you ever learned to pray. But here's what hell didn't count on. When you finally did learn to pray, your prayers would carry the authority of someone who had been tested and proven faithful. The battles you've fought have given you credibility in the spirit realm. Angels respect survivors. Demons fear overcomers. And you, chosen one, are both. So the next time the enemy reminds you of your past, remind him of his future. The next time he whispers about your failures, declare your destiny. The next time he tries to convince you that you're damaged goods, remember that even Jesus carried scars into his glory. The warfare was never about destroying you. It was about revealing what you're made of. And what you're made of is the very substance of heaven, unbreakable, unshakable, unstoppable. If that's you, if your life has felt like war since the beginning, comment, "The enemy knew my name, but God knew my victory." Because the battle that tried to bury you is about to become the platform that elevates you into the assignment you were born for. You know that feeling, don't you? That deep, aching sense that you were born into the wrong world, that everywhere you went, every room you entered, every conversation you joined, something felt off. Not wrong with them, wrong with you. At least, that's what they made you believe. But what if I told you tonight that everything you thought was your weakness was actually your mark? Let me take you back. Think about your childhood for a moment. While other kids were content with simple games, you were asking questions that made adults uncomfortable. Why do people lie? Where do souls go when they're sad? Why can't I feel what that person is really thinking? You weren't being difficult. You were being different. Divinely different. Your parents didn't know what to do with you. Teachers called you sensitive. Friends said you were too deep. Even in your own family, you felt like a question nobody knew how to answer. But here's what nobody told you then, and what most people still don't understand now. You weren't too sensitive. You were spiritually early. God planted you not in the crowd, but in the cave. Hidden, protected, separated for a reason that wouldn't make sense until decades later. Until tonight. The word declares in 1 Peter 2-9, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." Read that again. Chosen people. Not random people. Not accidental people. Chosen. But here's the part that'll shake you. Being chosen doesn't mean being celebrated. It means being set apart. And set apart always feels like isolation until you understand its purpose. You spent your 20s trying to fit in, your 30s wondering what was wrong with you, your 40s exhausted from pretending, and now, in these golden years, you're finally ready to hear the truth. You were never supposed to fit in. You were marked from the womb to stand out. Think about Moses, hidden in a basket, raised in Pharaoh's house, but never truly Egyptian, never truly Hebrew, always caught between worlds. Why? Because God needed someone who could speak to both sides, someone who understood exile because they'd lived it, someone who carried the pain of not belonging because that pain would birth the passion to lead others home. That's you. That's been you all along. You felt different in church because your relationship with God was deeper than ritual. You felt different at work because your values couldn't be bought. You felt different in your neighborhood because you could sense things others couldn't. The depression behind the smile, the fear behind the anger, the cry for help behind the boasting. But here's what broke my heart as I prepared this message. How many of you spent years believing the lie that something was wrong with you? How many of you dimmed your light to make others comfortable? How many of you buried your discernment because people called it judgment? How many of you silenced your spiritual gifts because someone said you were too religious? Dear ones, listen to me carefully. Every time you felt like you didn't belong, God was confirming that you belonged to Him. Every time people couldn't figure you out, heaven was protecting the assignment growing inside you. Every season of loneliness was actually a season of preparation. You see, God doesn't mark people for comfort, He marks them for commission. And commission always comes with a cost. The cost of feeling misunderstood, the cost of walking roads others won't travel, the cost of carrying weight others can't carry. But oh, the reward. The reward of knowing that every tear you cried in isolation was collected in heaven's bottles. The reward of understanding that your sensitivity wasn't a corset, was your spiritual antenna, picking up frequencies others couldn't detect. The reward of realizing that your difference was actually your assignment coming alive. Joseph understood this, sold by his brothers because he was different, hated because he dreamed, imprisoned because he wouldn't compromise. But that same difference, that same divine marking, eventually saved a nation. Esther knew this. Hidden in a palace, marked for royalty but feeling like an orphan, until the moment came when Mordecai spoke those earth-shaking words. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Your time is this. Your royal position is now, not on a throne made of gold, but on a platform made of purpose. You've been hidden long enough, prepared long enough, marked long enough. The enemy whispered lies about your difference because he knew what that difference would produce. He saw the generations you would influence. He saw the prayers you would pray that would shake hell's gates. He saw the wisdom you would carry that would guide others out of darkness. He tried to convince you that being set apart was punishment, but God is declaring tonight, being set apart was protection. Protection until the hour when your secret assignment would finally be revealed. You feel it stirring now, don't you? That old fire you thought had died. That calling you buried under years of trying to be normal. That voice you silenced because others couldn't understand its sound. It's rising again. Not as whisper this time, but as a roar. Because the marked ones are being awakened. The chosen are being activated. And you, dear soul, you who never fit in anywhere else, you fit perfectly into God's plan. But the question that will determine everything is this. Now that you know why you never fit in, will you finally step into what you were marked for? Chosen one, listen to me with every fiber of your being. You didn't just stumble into this message tonight. You were summoned into a prophetic window that only opens once in a lifetime. And what I'm about to tell you will explain why everything in your life has been shifting, why you've been feeling that restless stirring, why sleep has been elusive and dreams have been intense. You have entered your 7-day countdown. Just like Joshua standing before the walls of Jericho, you've been circling something massive for years, circling that breakthrough, circling that calling, circling that promise God whispered to you in the darkness. You've been walking around those walls for 6 long years, 6 painful seasons, 6 cycles of waiting. But tonight marks the beginning of your 7th day. And on the 7th day, walls fall. Joshua 6:15 declares, "On the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times. It was only on the 7th day that they marched around the city 7 times. This wasn't just military strategy. This was prophetic blueprint. This was heaven's pattern for breakthrough that defies natural law. Right now, as you're hearing these words, you're not just listening to a message. You're participating in a divine countdown that started the moment you were born. Every rejection you faced, every door that slammed shut, every dream that seemed to die was all part of the marching, all part of the circling, all part of the preparation for this seventh day. But here's what they don't tell you about the seventh day. It doesn't feel like victory at first. It feels like the weight of every previous day crushing down on you all at once. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That spiritual pressure building. That sense that something has to give. That's not breakdown, beloved. That's breakthrough pressure. You see, the children of Israel didn't just walk casually around Jericho. They carried the Ark of the Covenant. They carried the presence of God. And right now, you're carrying something too. Something heavy, something sacred, something that hell has been trying to stop and heaven has been protecting. The enemy has thrown everything at you in these past months because he knows what's coming. He sees your seventh day approaching and he's desperate. Every attack on your peace, every assault on your mind, every attempt to make you give up, it's all last-ditch warfare because your walls are about to fall. But I need you to understand something crucial. Your walls aren't just going to fall. They're going to collapse so completely that everyone who doubted you, everyone who counted you out, everyone who said you'd never make it, they're going to watch in stunned silence as God vindicates every promise he ever made to you. Mark today's date in the comments. Write it down, because that date will be the line between before and after. This is your seventh day beginning. You've been asking God, when is my time? The answer is now. You've been crying out, have you forgotten me? The answer is never. You've been wondering, am I really chosen? The answer is thundering from heaven. You are marked, you are sealed, you are commissioned. But here's the thing about the seventh day that will shake you to your core. It requires a different kind of faith. For 6 days, the Israelites marched in silence. No shouting, no celebrating, just obedient walking. But on the seventh day, God said, now you shout. Your season of silent suffering is over. Your time of quiet endurance has passed. God is calling you to lift your voice, to declare his promises, to shout down every wall that has kept you contained. Some of you have been whispering prayers for so long you've forgotten you have a roar. Some of you have been tiptoeing around your calling so long you've forgotten you were born to thunder. But the seventh day demands a sound. It demands you open your mouth and release what's been building in your spirit. The walls of Jericho didn't fall from the walking. They fell from the shouting. They fell when the people finally released the sound that had been building for 6 days of silent faith. What sound has been building in you? What declaration has been trapped in your throat? What promise have you been afraid to speak out loud? Because I'm telling you tonight, your Jericho moment has arrived. Every giant that has stood in your path, every obstacle that has blocked your view, every limitation that has defined your life, it's all about to crumble. But the seventh day comes with a warning. It demands everything. No more partial obedience. No more halfway commitment. No more playing it safe while God is calling you to be dangerous. Joshua told the people, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. Notice he didn't say, the Lord will give you the city. He said, has given, past tense. It was already done before they ever opened their mouths. Your breakthrough isn't coming. It's here. Your promotion isn't pending. It's prepared. Your healing isn't hoped for. It's happening. But you have to open your mouth and claim what heaven has already declared. This 7-day window you've entered isn't just about personal victory. You're about to become a living testimony that God still does the impossible, that he still parts seas, still topples giants, still raises the dead. People are going to look at your life and ask, how did this happen? And you're going to have only one answer. The Lord has given me the city. Your seventh day has begun. The countdown is live. And tomorrow when you wake up, you won't be the same person who fell asleep tonight. The walls are already cracking. Can you hear it? Beloved, There's a moment in every chosen one's life when the curtain is pulled back and you see the truth. Not the truth about your failures, not the truth about your mistakes, but the truth about your assignment. Tonight, that curtain is being ripped away from your eyes. You've been asking God, why me? Why has my life been so hard? Why have I walked through valleys that others never even knew existed? But what if I told you that every tear you've cried, every night you couldn't sleep, every betrayal that left you gasping for air, what if all of it was preparation for this very hour? Look at Queen Esther, an orphan girl, no family name, no political connections, no royal bloodline. Yet when genocide threatened her people, when death certificates were already being written, God didn't choose a seasoned politician. He didn't select a military general. He chose the girl who had been hidden in the shadows. And do you know what Mordecai told her when she hesitated? Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Esther 4:14. Not for such a time as that, not for such a time as tomorrow, for such a time as this. You thought your pain was punishment, but what if it was preparation? You thought your isolation was abandonment, but what if it was incubation? You thought those closed doors were rejection, but what if they were redirection, steering you away from anything that would compromise what you're carrying? Listen to me carefully. The reason depression didn't take you out is because you have a deliverance to carry. The reason anxiety didn't silence you is because you have a voice that will speak freedom over a generation. The reason betrayal didn't make you bitter is because you were being prepared to restore broken families, broken churches, broken communities. The reason it didn't kill you is because you were the key to unlocking freedom for others. You see, chosen one, you've been living with the wrong narrative. You've been calling yourself a victim when heaven has been calling you a victor. You've been seeing yourself as damaged goods when God has been seeing you as a dangerous weapon against darkness. Every single thing that tried to destroy you only served to authenticate your calling. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. Hell doesn't deploy its finest demons against powerless people. The level of attack over your life has always been proof of the level of authority resting on it. But here's what shakes me to my core. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, there are people in bondage, emotional bondage, spiritual bondage, generational bondage, and the key to their freedom is sitting in your spirit. There are marriages on the brink of collapse, and the word of reconciliation is in your mouth. There are children walking toward destruction, and the intercession that will turn them around is in your prayers. You've been carrying answers to questions you've never been asked. You've been carrying healing for wounds you've never seen. You've been carrying breakthrough for people you've never met. But heaven positioned you, strategically placed you, divinely planted you in this generation because this generation needs what you carry. But Esther had a choice. She could have stayed silent. She could have played it safe. She could have said, "I'm just a girl. Who am I to approach the king?" But she understood something that changed everything. She realized that her silence would cost more than her voice. "If I perish, I perish," she declared. But she also understood this truth. If I stay silent, we all perish. That's where you are right now. You're standing at the threshold of the throne room, and yes, speaking up might cost you comfort. Yes, stepping into your calling might cost you relationships. Yes, walking in your assignment might cost you the approval of people who were never meant to go where you're going. But your silence will cost far more. How many more nights will you let fear convince you that you're not ready? How many more opportunities will you let slip by because you're waiting for someone else to give you permission? How many more people will remain bound because the key to their freedom is locked up in your insecurities? The assignment that's been dormant in your spirit for years isn't dormant anymore. It's awake, it's alive, it's demanding activation, and heaven is watching to see if you'll step into the throne room or retreat to the shadows. This is your Esther moment. This is your for such a time as this hour. Every single thing in your life has been preparing you for what's about to unfold. The question is not whether you're qualified. The question is whether you're willing. The kingdom of darkness is trembling right now because they know something you're just beginning to realize. When a chosen one finally says yes to their assignment, when they stop apologizing for their calling and start walking in it, everything changes. Your secret assignment just came alive tonight. Not next week, not next month, tonight. And the only thing standing between you and your destiny is your agreement with heaven's plan. Write this in the comments. I was born for this hour. Heaven needs your agreement. Because the moment you align your voice with God's voice, the moment you align your yes with His yes, the very gates of hell will not prevail against what He's about to do through you. The throne room is waiting. The assignment is active. Your time is now. But will you step through that door? Now that your assignment has been activated, everything changes. You cannot go back to sleep. You cannot pretend you didn't hear what heaven just whispered to your spirit. The secret that was sealed is now open, and with revelation comes responsibility. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to give you are not suggestions. These are divine directives, instructions from the throne room itself. Moses didn't receive the 10 Commandments as recommendations, they were commands. And what you're about to receive carries that same weight. Your first instruction is this: speak out your assignment daily. Every morning, when you wake up, before you check your phone, before you pour your coffee, you must declare out loud, I am chosen. I carry a secret assignment from heaven. Today, I walk in divine purpose. Your voice has power. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, Proverbs 18:21 tells us. For too long, you've been silent about your calling. That silence ends now. Why does this matter? Because the enemy has spent decades convincing you that you're ordinary. He's whispered lies that your voice doesn't matter, that your dreams died with your youth, that it's too late for God to use you. But when you speak your assignment out loud, you're not just talking to yourself, you're making a declaration in the spiritual realm. You're announcing to hell that you know who you are. Every word you speak over yourself either builds or destroys. Every morning declaration is laying foundation stones for what God wants to build through you in this final season of your life. But speaking alone isn't enough. Your second instruction cuts deeper. Revisit your buried dreams. I need you to be honest with me right now. What dreams did you bury when life got hard? What visions did you abandon when people said you were being unrealistic? What calling did you silence when circumstances screamed louder than heaven's whisper? Those dreams didn't die. They've been waiting. Like Lazarus in the tomb, they've been wrapped in grave clothes of disappointment, fear, and resignation. But Jesus didn't come to Lazarus to pay respects. He came to resurrect. Lazarus, come forth, he commanded in John 11:43. And today, God is calling to your buried dreams. Come forth. You think it's too late. Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything. Moses was 80 when he stood before Pharaoh. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Age isn't your disqualification, it's your validation. You've survived long enough to carry wisdom with your vision. But here's what will shock you. Those dreams you thought were about you were never about you. They were about the people God knew you would reach. That book you wanted to write could save someone's marriage. That ministry you dreamed of could heal generational wounds. That business idea could provide for your grandchildren's education. Your third instruction requires courage. Write your spiritual declaration of activation. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to take a piece of paper and write these words at the top. My covenant with heaven. Then write down everything God has stirred in your spirit through this message. Write down the dreams that are resurrecting, Write down the assignment you're accepting. Write down the legacy you're going to build. This isn't journaling. This is documenting a spiritual transaction. When you write it down, you're making it legal in the realm of the spirit. Habakkuk 2:2 says, "Write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it." God doesn't tell us to think about the vision. He tells us to write it down. But here's the weight of this moment. Once you write it, there's no going back. Once you put pen to paper and declare your assignment, heaven will hold you accountable. Angels will be dispatched. Doors will open. Opposition will intensify. Because when the chosen ones activate, everything shifts. Are you ready for that level of spiritual responsibility? Are you ready for God to take you at your word? Your final instruction carries generational weight. Bless your children and grandchildren, transfer the legacy. This isn't about leaving them money in your will. This is about transferring the spiritual inheritance that only you can give. Isaac blessed Jacob. Jacob blessed his sons. Joshua blessed the next generation before he died. The mantle must be passed. Your children and grandchildren need to hear from your mouth that they are chosen. They need to know the struggles you overcame weren't just personal victories, they were generational breakthroughs. When you tell them your story, you're not just sharing memories, you're transferring authority. How many of you have been too humble to tell your family what God has done through you? How many of you have downplayed your own testimony because you didn't want to seem boastful? That humility is actually robbing your bloodline of their inheritance. When you speak blessing over your lineage, you're not just giving them encouragement, you're activating their DNA. You're awakening gifts that have been dormant. You're breaking cycles that have held your family captive for generations, but time is not on your side. The enemy knows that every day you delay is a day your family remains unblessed. Every week you stay silent is a week your legacy remains untransferred. These 4 instructions aren't optional. They're your marching orders. Speak daily, revisit dreams, write the vision, bless the bloodline. Each one builds on the other. Each one activates the next level of your assignment. The secret assignment that came alive tonight won't stay secret much longer. Soon, everyone will see what heaven has been preparing. The question is, will you be ready when that moment comes? Because what happens next will determine not just your legacy, but the destiny of everyone connected to your bloodline. Are you willing to step into that level of spiritual authority? You know what nobody talks about in church? The fact that some children are born into warfare they never asked for. Some babies come into this world and darkness is already waiting at the hospital room door. Some kids grow up feeling like they're carrying invisible weights that other children don't seem to have. If that's your story, listen to me carefully. You weren't imagining it. Before you had language, you had battle. Before you could even speak your first word, there were forces in the unseen realm that recognized something in you that even your own parents couldn't see. The enemy doesn't wait for you to grow up and become a threat. He strikes early, he strikes hard, and he strikes specifically. Your childhood wasn't random, it was reconnaissance. Think about it. Why do some kids sail through their early years with scraped knees and bedtime stories, while others seem to attract trauma like magnets? Why do some children grow up feeling different, isolated, misunderstood, like they're carrying secrets they can't even name? The truth is this: the enemy tries to kill prophets in the cradle. David writes in Psalm 139, "You created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." That means before you took your first breath, God already saw your entire destiny. He saw what you would become. He saw the assignments you would carry. He saw the people you would deliver. But here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school: if God could see it, so could the enemy. You weren't attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because you were marked. That anxiety that followed you around as a 7-year-old, That feeling of being watched, hunted, different, that wasn't mental illness, that was spiritual recognition. Something in the invisible realm saw the oil on your life before you even knew what oil was. Maybe it was the way certain relatives treated you with unexplained hostility, like your very presence agitated something in them. Maybe it was the way you felt things too deeply, saw things other kids missed, carried burdens that weren't even yours. Maybe it was the nightmares, the fear, the sense that you were living in a battle zone while everyone else seemed to be at a picnic. You thought you were broken. You thought you were cursed. You thought God had forgotten you before you even really knew His name. But what if I told you the opposite was true? What if the intensity of the attack was actually evidence of the magnitude of your calling? Listen, chosen one. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. He doesn't deploy his finest weapons against people who pose no threat. The level of resistance you faced as a child was directly proportional to the level of authority you were destined to carry as an adult. They tried to silence you before you found your voice. They tried to break you before you learned your strength. They tried to isolate you before you discovered your tribe. Why? Because they saw something coming that you couldn't even imagine yet. Maybe they told you that you were too sensitive. Maybe they said you were difficult or dramatic or too much. Maybe they made you feel like your emotions were weapons against the family peace. Maybe they convinced you that the very qualities that made you powerful were actually flaws to be fixed. But what if your sensitivity was actually spiritual antenna? What if your too much was actually divine capacity? What if everything they tried to medicate, educate, or suffocate out of you was actually the very thing God intended to use to change the world? The enemy's strategy was simple. If he could convince you that your gifts were curses, if he could make you ashamed of your anointing, if he could get you to spend your whole life trying to fix what was never broken, then you'd never step into what you were born for. Some of you reading this right now are feeling the sting of recognition. You're remembering things you buried. You're feeling the weight of wounds you thought you'd healed. You're realizing that what you called childhood trauma was actually early spiritual warfare. Here's what I need you to understand. Every attack that came against you was confirmation that there was something in you worth attacking. Every attempt to diminish you was evidence that there was something in you worth diminishing. Every effort to silence you was proof that your voice was going to say something the kingdom of darkness didn't want heard. You survived what was meant to destroy you. You outlasted what was designed to outlast you. You kept breathing when hell held its breath, waiting to see if you'd give up. But you didn't give up. You're still here. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's divine preservation in action. God kept you alive because your assignment wasn't complete. He sustained you through the storms because the rainbow was coming. He held you together when everything else was falling apart because He knew what you were going to build when you finally understood who you really were. The child who felt too much is now the adult who heals what others can't even see. The kid who was too intense is now the voice that pierces through spiritual darkness. The young person who never fit in was being prepared to lead others who feel just as lost and alone as you once did. If your childhood tried to break you, right. But I'm still here, because your survival wasn't accidental, your endurance wasn't random, and your story, painful as it was, is about to become someone else's salvation. The very thing that tried to destroy you is about to become the thing that establishes your authority. The assault that began early is about to end with your victory, and that victory is going to echo through generations you'll never meet, touching lives you'll never know, breaking chains that have held captive people who are praying right now for someone exactly like you to rise up and show them the way out. But first, you have to stop apologizing for surviving what should have killed you and start celebrating the fact that you're still standing. Because that's not just resilience, chosen one. That's resurrection power in human form. Let me ask you something that's going to hit close to home. When was the last time you opened your heart completely, really opened it only to watch it get shattered into 1,000 pieces? When was the last time you trusted someone in your church, your family, your circle, and they turned their back on you the moment you needed them most? It happened again, didn't it? Just when you trusted, just when you opened your heart. You've been asking yourself the same question for years now. Why does it always feel like something is trying to shut me down? Every time you step forward in faith, every time you dare to believe again, every time you start to heal, bam, another betrayal, another rejection, another door slammed in your face. You thought it was bad luck. You thought maybe you were choosing the wrong people. But what if I told you it wasn't random at all? What if every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of isolation was actually a coded alarm sent directly from hell to stop heaven's timeline in your life? Listen carefully. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. He doesn't deploy his finest weapons against people who pose no threat. But you've been under sustained attack since you were young. Why? Because darkness recognized what you carried before you ever did. Think about it. David wasn't hunted by Saul because he was weak. He was hunted because Saul saw the oil on his life. The very anointing that threatened an insecure king made David a target. 1 Samuel 18-9 tells us, "From that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David." That wasn't casual observation, that was strategic surveillance. That's what's been happening to you. You've been watched. You've been targeted. Not because you're cursed, but because you're chosen. Remember when Nehemiah was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem? His enemies didn't just disagree with his vision, they launched coordinated attacks. Nehemiah 4-8 says, "They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it." Plot, coordinate, strategic warfare. Sound familiar? Every time you've gotten close to breakthrough, the attacks intensified. Every time you started to rise, something tried to bury you. Every time your gift began to shine, someone tried to dim your light. You keep asking, why does it always feel like something is trying to shut me down? Because something is. But here's what the enemy hoped you'd never figure out. The intensity of the attack is always proportional to the magnitude of your calling. Nobody robs empty houses. Nobody fights for worthless territory. The level of warfare over your life is actually evidence of the level of purpose resting on it. You weren't fragile. You were formidable. That's what the enemy saw. That's what he feared. Think about every person who betrayed you, every leader who disappointed you, every friend who abandoned you when you needed them most. What if they weren't the real enemy? What if they were just pawns in a much larger game? Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world." The church hurt wasn't just church hurt. The family rejection wasn't just family dysfunction. The workplace persecution wasn't just office politics. It was spiritual warfare designed to make you give up before you ever discovered who you really are. You've been carrying guilt, haven't you? Wondering what you did wrong. Wondering why you can't seem to keep relationships. Wondering if maybe there's something fundamentally broken about you. But what if the opposite is true? What if there's something so powerfully right about you that hell had to deploy its finest strategies to keep you contained? Look at your life. Really look at it. The timing of every major attack, right before your breakthrough, right before your promotion, right before your healing, right before your ministry was about to launch, right before your gift was about to be recognized. The pattern isn't coincidence, it's strategy. But here's what hell didn't count on. You're still here. You're still standing. You're still believing. After everything they threw at you, the betrayals, the false accusations, the isolation, the depression, the anxiety, the fear, you're still here. And that terrifies them. Because now you're beginning to see the pattern. Now you're starting to understand that your pain wasn't proof of God's absence, it was proof of your importance. Every tear you cried was collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you whispered in the dark was heard in the throne room. Every time you wanted to quit but didn't, angels took notice. You survived what was meant to destroy you. You endured what was designed to make you quit. You pressed through battles that would have defeated others. Why? Because you carry something they can't afford to let loose. The attacks haven't stopped because you're weak. They've continued because you're dangerous. To generational curses, to demonic strongholds, to systems of oppression that have ruled your family line for decades. You are the one they've been afraid of all along. But now that you know the pattern, now that you see the strategy, everything changes. You're not a victim anymore. You're a threat, and it's time to start acting like it. So I have to ask you, are you ready to stop playing defense and start playing offense? Because your secret assignment isn't just about surviving the attacks, it's about turning the tables on everything that's been hunting you. Beloved chosen ones, as we reach the end of this divine encounter, I want you to hold on to these truths with everything in you. You are not broken, you are being built. You are not forgotten, you are being positioned. Every attack you've endured was confirmation of the assignment heaven placed on your life before you took your first breath. Remember this, the enemy's strategy against you has always been about prevention, not punishment. He saw your potential before you did. He recognized your calling before you accepted it. Every betrayal, every setback, every moment of isolation was designed to keep you from discovering the secret assignment that just came alive tonight. But here you are, still standing, still believing, still breathing with purpose. You are not walking this path alone. The same God who watched over Daniel in the lion's den is watching over you. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead is working in your life right now. Romans 8:31 declares, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" That's not just a verse, that's your reality. And this community, we're not just viewers, we're warriors standing with you. When you comment below, when you share your story, when you ask for prayer, you're stepping into a family that understands the weight you carry. You're joining thousands of chosen ones who've walked similar paths and emerged victorious. So let me ask you this. Now that you know the truth about your secret assignment, now that you understand the pattern of attack, what are you going to do with this revelation? Will you step into the fullness of who God created you to be? Will you embrace the calling that's been dormant in your spirit for far too long? I want to pray over you right now. If you're listening to this, imagine my hand on your shoulder, the warmth of heaven surrounding you, as I speak these words over your life. Father God, I lift up every person hearing this message right now. Lord, they've been through the fire, they've walked through valleys that nearly broke them, they've endured attacks that would have destroyed others. But you preserved them, you kept them, you sustained them for this very moment. Tonight, I pray that every chain of confusion breaks. Every lie that whispered, "You're not enough," dies. Every fear that held them back crumbles under the weight of your truth. Release clarity over their minds, peace over their hearts, and boldness into their spirits. God, activate every dormant gift. Awaken every sleeping dream. Restore every stolen year. Open doors that no man can shut. Align divine connections, release supernatural provision. And most importantly, Father, let them feel your presence so powerfully that they never doubt their worth again. I declare over them, they are chosen, they are called, they are covered, and they are coming into their season of breakthrough. What the enemy meant for harm, you are turning for good. What was broken, you are making beautiful. What was lost, you are restoring. Surround them with favor, protect them with your angels, guide them with your spirit. and let them walk in the authority of who you've called them to be. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. This conversation doesn't end here. I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me what stirred in your spirit tonight. What part of your secret assignment is becoming clear? Share your story. Someone else needs to hear that they're not alone in this journey. If this message touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to know they're chosen. Your share might be the very thing that awakens another warrior to their calling. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss when heaven releases another word through this channel. We're building more than an audience. We're building an army of awakened believers who refuse to stay silent about what God is doing. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you tonight. Your presence here was not coincidence, it was covenant. Now go, walk in the authority of your secret assignment. Move with the confidence of someone who knows they're backed by heaven. And remember, you are never alone, you are never forgotten, and you are never without purpose. Your assignment is live, your time is now, your God is with you. Until we meet again in the next divine encounter, stay strong, stay faithful, and stay ready. The best is yet to come. Amen.